Hey everyone, welcome all, welcome back to my channel. If you're not new, I'm Merciful Moon the Mystic, and today we're diving into a follow-up topic that I covered months ago, the misconceptions about Lilith. And in that video, I broke down why Lilith is not the divine feminine goddess that many in the left-hand path occult community make her out to be. I also briefly mention Eve and how Lilith's crimes against her, along with her actions against women and children in general, um, if you study Jewish folklore, resulted in her not being accepted into the ranks of the underworld slash hell. But today we're focusing on something else. The blatant slander and disrespect towards Eve that runs rampant in spiritual spaces, especially in the left-hand path community. This video, I might just title it Stop the Eve slander, because frankly, I am tired of seeing people demonize Eve just to uplift Lilith's crusty butt. So, what inspired this video, Mystic? What inspired this video, Merciful? Well, I'll tell you what inspired it. The inspiration for this video hit when I was on Facebook talking to my beloved Coven sister, Sage, and as I was scrolling through my feed, I came across a post from one of my mutuals who was essentially trashing Eve while glorifying Lilith. Shocker. She claimed she could tell who was a quote-unquote daughter of Eve versus quote-unquote daughter of Lilith, not so subtly suggesting that Lilith, or the Lilitu, represents the ideal dark feminine while making Eve seem like she's some weak pawn with no agency. I know some of you out there may have seen similar nonsense in these spiritual spaces, and one of the most infamous examples would be like that god-awful poster in Saying that features some white woman with red hair with a snake coiled around her and an apple in her hand, accompanied by the ridiculous quotes, "Be Lilith and never Eve." I'm also willing to bet that at least one of you watching has also come across another misguided phrase, "In a world full of Eves, be Lilith." So let's break down how inaccurate and revisionist this whole trend is. The figure of misrepresentation and misinformation. The image of the woman holding an apple with a snake wrapped around her, that's actually supposed to be Eve, not Lilith. Satan in the Christian mythos was in the Garden of Eden and was depicted as a serpent who persuaded Eve to eat from the fruit from the tree of knowledge. Lilith was never involved in that story. She was not there, and she was not the snake, and she is certainly not Satan. Yet people, especially those who worship Lilith, her misinformed devotees, have twisted this imagery to make her seem like some rebellious dark mother figure, while erasing Eve's role and importance entirely. Lilith was not a part of Eve's story. Another thing that grinds my gears whenever I see certain quotes glorifying Lilith and demonizing Eve would be the quote that I mentioned above, the "Be Lilith, never Eve" quote, and how that where that quote originates, it's taken from like this young adult novel. That line that gets thrown around so often originated from a young adult novel called Nightfall from the Devil's Night series from Penelope Douglas. Apparently, the misinformed devotees of Lilith, people saw something that sounded edgy and cool, like a slogan, and decided to run with it, no matter how historically inaccurate or misguided it is. Because remember, in Lilith's original Jewish folklore, she is often said to be a malevolent entity that goes out of her way to terrorize women and children. So it's wild how many people in the spiritual and occult community latch onto fiction without fact checking anything. if you're going to base your spirituality on a catchy quote from a novel instead of historical or theological study actual actual like one-on-one encounters with the actual entity and not an imposter, then maybe, just maybe, you should rethink your entire foundation. Number 3, Eve is literally the mother of knowledge. Eve made the sacrifice to eat from the tree of knowledge, as the the biblical textbooks say. She took a leap of faith and broke away from the demiurge control with the help of Satan. She represents enlightenment, power, and freedom, and knowledge in itself represents enlightenment, power, and freedom. It's one of the most powerful things you can possess in this world. It's enlightenment, it's liberation, and it is strength. And yet, the very same occultists who preach about rebellion, knowledge, and self-empowerment will turn around and trash Eve, like make it make sense. Eve embodies the very ideals that left-hand path practitioners claim to uphold. She sought wisdom, she disobeyed an oppressive force, and she gained power and freedom through knowledge. So why does she still get so much hate within this occult space? Why is she so looked down upon? Well, the root of all that is misogyny. The real reason why Eve doesn't get the respect she deserves is misogyny, plain and simple. Misinformation and misogyny, might I add. So Christianity has spent centuries demonizing Eve, portraying her as the downfall of mankind, the reason for suffering. She's framed as the weak-willed woman who, quote unquote, doomed us all. And ironically, many left-hand path practitioners who claim to be so against Christian dogma have actually fallen for the same misogynistic narrative without even realizing it. People refuse to give Eve her credit because they're either too lazy to do their own research or too stuck in mainstream conditioning or just too invested in the trendy PR campaign Lilith's misguided devotees, her misinformed devotees, into turning Lilith into something she never was. They're parroting Christian rhetoric while thinking they're rebelling against it. The irony is just unreal. So, in conclusion, to everyone out there watching and listening, so everyone out there, if you're still on the Lilith is a dark femme goddess train, and Lilith is Lilith is something to aspire to, and you think Eve is some weak pawn, like, you need to wake up from the dogma, wake up from the freaking propaganda, because that's what it is. Like, you have to do your research, actually think about the stories you're pulling from, and how they've been twisted over time. And most importantly, stop the Eve slander. So if you like this video, be sure to comment, like, share, subscribe. Well, you know what to do. And let me know of your thoughts below. Have you seen this kind of Eve slander in your own spiritual spaces? Let's talk about it. So until next time, stay aware, stay empowered, and stay true to yourself. Bye.